right, if you guys can hear me, give me a thumbs up, please. Can you guys hear me okay? Just want to make sure you guys can hear me. Just waiting for Chris to join. Hi, how are you? Heather, good to see you on. Thank you. What's up, Rob? All right, so we're just waiting for Chris. He should be on any second. And then we got a pretty exciting... Hold on, is that Chris? No. We got a pretty exciting day. We're going to talk a lot about what it takes to become a team doctor and all the kind of things that go along with that, the pros, the cons, and you guys sent a lot of questions in, so we're pretty excited to ask Chris. I don't know where he is. Should be here any second. Let's see. I haven't seen him request yet. All right. I hope he's not having any technical problems. But anyhow, so I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about Chris while we're waiting for him to come on, and I can reintroduce him once he gets on. So Chris he's a friend, he's a colleague, he's an excellent surgeon. Chris Jones is at UCLA currently. He went to undergrad at University of Chicago, where he played football, and he was a tailback. And then he got his med school degree from Penn, and he was at HSS for both his residency and his fellowship. He's an excellent surgeon. HSS is one of the top orthopedic hospitals in the country. His credentials kind of speak for themselves. Let me see. I think this might be him. Let me try to get him set up. All right. I don't see him yet. Chris, are you out there? There he is. All right. Okay, guys, we're going to get going now. Chris.
What's up, Nima?
All right, what's up, man? I was actually just introducing you. I was waiting for you to get on. Can you see me okay?
No, I actually can't see the video.
There
we go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Sorry, I think I accidentally hit the reverse.
No worries, man. How are you?
Good. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Are you at work today? You in the office?
Yeah. We're just, a mix of telemedicine visits and just inpatient visits.
Yeah. Same for us. Last night, though, I did an ER shift. They have us doing some ortho in the ER just in case there's a surge. So I'm off today, which is nice.
So you got redeployed, huh?
Yeah, it's more of like preparation. We're just kind of doing the ortho to kind of learn their system just in case they need the extra hands in the future.
Just as long as you're not managing vents, man. I feel better.
Yeah, still bones. All right, guys. So just to introduce Chris Jones, Dr. Chris Jones. Again, he went to the University of Chicago for his undergrad. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. And he was a running back there, as well as a top-notch student. He went to Penn for med school, and then again to one of the top orthopedic programs in the country at the Hospital for Special Surgery for both his residency and sports medicine fellowship. But Chris, you did some time in Europe too, right?
Yeah. So at HSS, we had a unique opportunity to spend a month away, do like a month-long elective. And I went to France, Lyon, Nice, Paris to visit some of the guys out there who were, back then, arthroscopic Latarjets and a lot of the bone block procedures for shoulder instability was getting popular. So I went out there because we weren't doing as much of that at that time compared to Europe. I think Europe really, reinitiated the interest in that conversation. So Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Chris, you got a lot of questions, a lot of fun questions. And for
Cool.
those that don't know, Dr. Chris Jones was one of the, he still is one of the UCLA team docs. He involved in other teams, but he's now the head team doc for the Lakers. And so a lot of people, what they wanted to know was for you to share a little bit about your path or your credentials that got you to that position.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you named some of them there. So, I sort of started along this path as early as high school. I played football all the way from 5 years of age to college. I remember Pee Wee League football. The Pop Warner leagues.
Oh yeah.
Did you play any of that stuff?
Very little Pop Warner, mostly basketball.
Yeah. So I played Pop Warner football, man, starting at like 5.
Uh-huh.
And I remember in high school, I think I was about 15, I dislocated my shoulder as my first major injury that I ever had. And my father at the time, that following Monday or whatever it was, after school picked me up. We went downtown to Northwestern, and I saw the doctor for the Chicago Bears at the time, Michael Schaefer. He was the head team doctor for the Chicago Bears and worked at Northwestern. And I remember walking into the waiting room and seeing like Rashaan Salam and all these, Chicago Bears just sitting there because it was the Monday after a game, of course. The waiting room is going to be full of football players. I thought to myself, wow, this is pretty cool. This guy, he is literally the team doctor for a major professional sports team. And back then I had an interest in, medicine, and, I was pretty good at science, and I was thinking to myself, I could have been a doctor. My brother is a physician. I was thinking that was a potential career path. So I remember I left that visit thinking to myself, wow, that could really be something I could get into. If I wasn't like, I was good and I played in college, but I wasn't going to the league. I knew that. So this was like another alternative to stay in the field of sports and be around athletes and, take care of people that are active, young, really motivated to get better. It was a natural career choice for me, even as I went through medical school. So it was a natural fit.
Yeah, I think a lot of us share that similar story. A lot of the orthopedic sports docs. So one of the questions that was really interesting that one of the followers asked was, what can you do to stand out compared to so many other well-accomplished surgeons when you're hoping to work with a pro team?
Yeah, I mean, you mean at like the trainee level or?
But at all levels, like what can you do to stand out as you're going through the process so people start to recognize you or put you in a better position?
Yeah, I mean, I think, a little bit of it is luck. Certainly here I am at UCLA. I'm lucky to work at such a fine, hospital and academic institution. We are, I would say, at the cutting edge of a lot of things that we do. So within the field of orthopedic surgery and sports medicine, I was approached by our leadership to kind of, take a role in this. And at the beginning, at the first few years, I was the assistant team physician. Mm-hmm. And then just 2 years ago, promoted to the head team position. So, I mean, I think overall, the way I look at it is a little bit of it is luck and just your ability to be at the right place at the right time. And then once you are there, people need to identify that you are a reliable person, that you're good at your craft. And that, a lot of this is just being such a good people person too, and being able to relate to not only, the athletes themselves, but also, there's, as there's dealing with, coaches, physical therapists, athletic trainers who we work, side by side with, agents, that's a completely different conversation. Yeah. And then obviously, other physicians and specialists, as we take care of these athletes, because, I take care of shoulder, elbow, knee issues, but when it comes to spine problems, we have our go-to guy. And, we use Watkins over there in the marina. And, you just have to have a good collaborative network of people and be able to, a real team player. That's where I think, having like a background in sports and really kind of comes into play. And, it's worked out well for me so far.
Yeah, it clearly has. I mean, it's even been fun to watch you go through the process, like watching, I remember a lot of people don't know, Chris and I are basically about 2 years apart. I interviewed as for a fellowship at UCLA when you just started.
Oh, okay.
So I met you in the interview process, and then
Oh, did you? I don't remember that.
Yeah, we never talked about this.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But it's just kind of funny. So it's I got to watch you a little bit in your process, a couple years ahead of me.
Right.
So Deep, who's actually a friend of mine from high school, he's an athletic trainer over in Valencia High School. He wants to know what your day-to-day responsibilities are for the Lakers, and do you travel with the team?
So day-to-day responsibilities. Well, I would say it starts with just being available for all phone calls and injuries that pop up during the day that may happen during practice. Injuries at home. I mean, accidents happen to these guys at home too. They're playing around with their 5-year-old daughter, fall down the stairs, and so things like that happen. So you're available for phone calls and obviously arranging medical needs, whether that's imaging or having them come into the office for an actual evaluation. Obviously, at games, we attend all of the home games in the NBA, which is quite a laborious task, as you know, with such a long season. We work hand in hand with the athletic trainers and physical therapists to sort of coordinate any sort of ongoing management of an actual injury itself.
Of course.
So we come up with I'm sort of responsible. I'm the guy for making the diagnosis, obviously, and then we collaboratively, put together a treatment plan, whether that's a non-operative treatment plan to get somebody through the season with an injury. For instance, a labral tear, someone has a labral tear, how do we get this guy through the season with this injury? Sometimes it's surgery, and that's another beast in and of itself. And then we don't travel with the team to away games. We have traveled to NBA events that may be put on by the NBA. So like we went with the team we went with the team to China, which was fun. That was an experience too.
Awesome.
With all the political things going on at the time. That was surreal. So if the team is going anywhere where they will not have specific coverage by another NBA physician, then we will coordinate care. So a lot of preseason games, a lot of special NBA events like going to China and things like that will travel.
Okay. So another popular question. Multiple people ask this. They wanted to know what the common misconceptions are about doctors who are working with pro teams.
That's all glitz and glamour. It's not.
Not at all.
I mean, this is a grind, man, and you have to love it to do it.
Yeah.
There are, just think about the hours that you put in the hospital, and then consider those hours in, as a second job, and that's what you put into this after you're done with what you're doing with regular patients during the day. If we have a game, my day begins at 5:30 and it ends at roughly around 11:30. So it's not all glitz and glamour. It is a grind. You are working very hard. Thankfully, I've managed to sort of figure out a way to manage my time so that it doesn't necessarily take away from time with your family. I think that's a really important balance to strike. I have just like you, I have two little kids, and I don't want it to be a situation where they always remember Dad leaving to go to a Laker game. Although they do know when I'm going, it's so funny. And they are totally into it now. I have two boys, and we took them to the game on December 22nd. I think it was against the Nets. And the Lakers organization is just top notch. They put together a holiday party for the staff and family members, and it was so funny. So we were in the one of the lounge areas, and you walk in and you immediately you get a holiday bag full of treats and things. And from that point on, the kids were sold. They wanted to go to every other Laker game that they could. I'm trying to explain to them, not every single one is like this. You don't always walk away with a bag full of toys. I think striking that family balance is really important. And I found a way to try and, get them to the games, and during the day games, get my wife to the games. You got to get your wife into basketball too if you want 100%. Her to be on board with this.
100%.
It is such a time commitment.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the biggest misconception, man. There's a lot of time that goes into this, and it's stressful. You're dealing with high level athletes who are making a lot of money to do what they do, and you're really trying to preserve the longevity of their career and make the best possible decisions that you can for their medical care. Taking care of somebody who plays recreational basketball on the weekend, while that may be extremely important to that particular person, and we try our best to make the best medical decisions for them. Different decisions and different factors play into, making that treatment decision for someone who plays NBA basketball. So there's a level of stress associated with it as well.
Yeah, I was actually talking to I have a patient who I did a revision ACL on, who wants to play in the Philippines, and she's been invited to go play over there. And we were just talking about how different it is in your treatment and how a little bit more aggressive you are, because them missing a month or 2 months extra is money in their pocket. It's a game changer, and so it's a different thing. It's a different beast for sure.
Yeah.
So one of the other questions that came up from a non-op person is they wanted to know what the roles are for a sports medicine non-op physician, the primary care physicians versus the orthopedic physicians. You and I obviously, but. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah. I defer. I would say our busiest guy right now actually is our primary care sports medicine person. With everything that's going on with the coronavirus. So we're really working around the clock to be ready for when we are able to allow players to go back to the facility. So we've been really having daily phone calls almost, to try and figure out how that's going to work. But so on that end, our primary care doctor has been extremely busy. But so their role in the team is to take care of all the primary care needs. So, we've had guys come up during the season, traveling a lot with pneumonia, for instance, and trying to coordinate care for that. So they take care of a lot of the medical problems, colds, flu, rashes, a lot of the actual family members as well. It's a big part of it too. You have to realize we're not just taking care of the players, but we're taking care of the family members and obviously people within our organization. Mm-hmm. So they're a key integral part of actual medical care, and prescribing of, medications and antibiotics and inhalers and things like that we as orthopedic surgeons forget the moment we graduate medical school.
Absolutely. One of the things that I didn't realize until I became a resident involved with certain teams and then a fellow was how much you were taking care of the people in the organization, employees, family members. Like I had no idea. That was something I didn't realize until we got involved.
Yeah.
So that's a really good point.
Yeah, I saw someone from the mailroom just last month, before all this craziness started to go down. He was picking up a heavy box in the mailroom and, ruptured his biceps, as long as his biceps. So, yeah, I mean, it's from, LeBron James all the way down to, mailroom, and that's why, you have to really love this job. It's quite busy.
And, you got to be available 100%. So, a couple people asked how your experience with high-level athletes has now affected or molded your everyday practice.
That's a great question. I really think it's allowed me to, number one, it's allowed me to integrate some of the more cutting-edge things that we can do into my regular practice. So, for instance, I know you had Heather on one of your IG Live discussions a while ago. I first learned about BFR trying to rehab some of our high level athletes, and I know that's now sort of become more commonplace in the rehab process. But I didn't integrate that into my regular patients and their care until I started to see the effects that it had on the high level athletes. So it's taking a lot of the cutting edge things that may be more accessible from by high level athletes, and then saying, okay, well, this seems to work really well. Let's integrate it into the care for my regular patients. So I've taken, BFRs one, and biologics is certainly something that I've certainly, come to integrate into my practice more. It's something that we've used in high-level athletes for a very long time to, facilitate a faster recovery. I've seen some great things with, PRP, BMAC, HA. So, one thing I've done with cartilage issues, people who are post-op from cartilage problems and continue to have continued knee effusions or synovitis, I've come to do like a combined PRP and HA injection. And that started with guys, who I know have had it in the past in the NBA and had good results from that. There's some newer basic science literature to suggest the two are synergistic when you add them together. So I've started to do that in my regular practice now too. So, I think you do some more outside the box things with these high level athletes, and you learn what seems to be effective that may not necessarily have a lot of high level data behind it, but from an anecdotal standpoint seems to work. And I've certainly taken those tools and put them in my toolbox in my 9-to-5 job.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, is your earbud okay? Should I put my other one in? Are you getting feedback?
No.
Okay. Cool.
I hear you. Okay.
I just worried that you kept touching. I thought that maybe you were getting some feedback.
No.
Okay, cool. So this is a great question. This is actually from a doctor out in New York, one of the front lines docs doing a lot of the pulmonary stuff. He wanted to know how you did so much research in medical school.
I cheated a little bit. So I took a year off in medical school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's how I got a lot of that done. And, I think as an aspiring medical student back then, and I think even more so now, you really have to set yourself apart from the herd. And back then, I think research was the tried and true way to do it. I took a year out for a few reasons, mostly because I wanted to really affirm my decision for going into orthopedic surgery. At Penn, I was exposed to so many amazing physicians and so many amazing specialties that were pretty cutting edge. And I just didn't know at my third year that I really, really, truly wanted to do orthopedic surgery. And so I did a year out with an orthopedic surgeon, and it sold me on the whole idea. But it was a lot of nights and weekends, as it is now. If you want to continue to do research, it's not during the day. You have to find hours at night. And, once again, it's finding a balance, man. Here you are trying to, establish a practice by taking good care of patients. At the same time, you've got your evenings filled with basketball games or soccer games here at UCLA. And then, you're trying to pump out a paper on the back end. So there's so many things going on. You kind of make time where you find it and, try to be efficient.
I couldn't agree more. Research is I think, crucial more now than ever. Because, in medical, I think when you and I were coming out, medical students were lucky to publish a couple articles.
Right.
Now these kids are coming out with 10 to 15 articles, and you're like, wow, it's mind-blowing.
We interview, a good 50 candidates for our residency program every year. And I'm just amazed at how things continue to change and people become more competitive. The average, step one score now is
outrageous.
Back when we were applying, it was a 240. You were golden.
Yeah, exactly.
Golden, you know, and now it's even higher. But I tell all these medical students, look, that's not the end game, right? There are multiple components that go into reaching, the finish line and your ultimate goal. Step one is one, but don't become discouraged if that particular component of your application is not as strong as you want it to be.
So actually that's a segue into a question. I'm going to skip a few because one of the third-year medical students who's on watching right now, he asked, what can he do to get into orthopedics with a low step one score? How's he going to overcome that? Yeah,
you got to set yourself apart with the other parts of your application. So if you're a third year, then and you have a low step one score and maybe below average, then you have to work extra hard on awards. You have to make sure that you're getting honors in surgery, the honors in medicine. You have to set yourself apart with your grades. I would say research is a big component. Even still, we were talking about that before. Having a good 10 to 15 papers is a real feather in your cap, because it shows that you're a hard worker, you're disciplined, that you can learn how to start a project and see it through. You're efficient with your time, and that you're committed to the field. I think someone who's done 15 research projects in orthopedics, that's someone who truly wants to be an orthopedic surgeon, not necessarily, one here in infectious disease and one in with a cardiologist. And, that's someone who, don't get me wrong, they are to be commended for that. But when I see so many publications in the field of orthopedics, I just know that's someone who's wanting to do this for such a long time, and they're going to be committed to their craft. And then, it's, for me, letters of recommendation are so important. That's where I think taking a year out for me really helped. I established really genuine long-term mentorship type relationships with three guys who wrote really heartfelt letters, I thought. At one point I got to see them for residency, and I think it really sealed the deal for me, a lot of the top-notch residency programs. And, going through 4 years of medical school, you're pulled in so many different directions. You don't necessarily have the time to really establish those types of relationships. I had medical students ask me for, letters of recommendation after working with me for 2 weeks. And I'm happy to write those letters, but they're not as informative as, someone who's worked with me, on a research project throughout their, third year of medical school. So take time to really cultivate relationships with staff and physicians in your particular institution, and, be present too. I remember I was that guy at Penn who showed up to orthopedic grand rounds, and I wasn't even on the orthopedic service. People over time, they say, what is this kid doing here? He comes here every Thursday. And, if I could, I fit it in. And, ultimately they knew my face, they knew my name, hey, this guy's a good guy, he's really committed to this. And so, be present, be available, and just work hard.
Yeah, I can agree with all that more. That was perfect. So a great question was, what is a skill that helped you succeed as a team doctor that you wish you'd worked on earlier, perhaps?
Boy, I think, going back to what I was saying before, I think I could always be better at time management. Always. Yeah. I'm just getting busier. It's crazy. I didn't think I could be this busy to begin with, and I'm only getting busier. So I'm trying to find new ways to use technology to be a little bit more productive and efficient with my time. I think that's probably the number one thing. Just because there aren't enough hours in the day for me to do everything. So, you're really making a big sacrifice with your time as a team physician. So I think that's really the one thing that's comes to mind. The medicine part of it, the orthopedic part of it is pretty straightforward. That's something that, you have a foundation for, and you've learned in medical school and residency and fellowship. Obviously, you stay on top of your craft by reading orthopedic journals and staying up to date with the literature. But for the most part, we all do that. That's pretty natural. But I'd be the first person to tell you I've got to be more efficient with my time.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed that. Actually, that's why I actually started my Instagram. It was because it's a good way to give patients information when they have a lot of questions. They can kind of go back and see, this is the pros and cons of a BTB versus a hamstring. This is what, incisions look like after an ACL. Simple things that aren't that big of a deal, but they started, referring to it and telling other people about it. Or my friends who are therapists and athletic trainers were using it. And I was like, wow, this is actually saving me questions. So it was something I was helping provide a piece of information that was actually making my time management improve, So
that's interesting. Yeah. You mean for your own personal patients?
For my personal patients.
That's interesting. Yeah.
It's super interesting that they get psyched on it. They read it. Yeah. They relate to other patients. They reach out to other patients and talk to each other. It's kind of crazy how it worked out. Yeah. Okay. So an interesting question that I think a lot of people may not know, and this was an interesting question, was they want to know how teams decide who is going to cover them. A lot of people don't understand, why does the Lakers pick Chris Jones and UCLA over USC? How do they decide all that?
So a lot of that is I would say previous relationships. That's something that's taken care of by at the hospital level. So I think there were prior relationships between people in the front office and
Of course.
And sort of top level executives here at UCLA. And from there, it's kind of like, the big decision is, okay, are these two huge organizations going to partner together?
100%
and then, it was basically a partnership. And then once that decision is made, then everything kind of trickles down. And that's when, Chris Jones gets inserted into the equation. I'm in the sports medicine division. I have had previous experience with professional athletes, both at, the residency and fellowship level. I helped take care of the New York teams out there when I was training. So, I had previous experience and it was a natural fit. But then you just, then you're put into the fire and you got to do a good job and you got to be available and, you got to be good at what you do. And, that's where the whole personal aspect comes in. And so, once again, a little bit of timing, a little bit of luck. And then obviously once that falls into place, you got to be, work hard and do a good job.
You got to be good at your job. Yeah. So this is another good segue because people were asking about residencies. I think there's a lot of med students on this and residents who are interested in going into sports med, and they want to know when you're choosing a residency and you say, I know I want to be a team doctor somewhere. So how should you decide, pick a residency based on that? Are there certain residencies that give you a better advantage? What do you think about that?
That's another great question. I think in my mind, I'd say it helps. I think it certainly helps. So coming from the hospital for special surgery where I train, that's a very well-known orthopedic program, particularly within the world of sports medicine, because a lot of those doctors there are the head team physicians for the New York teams, and then also, national teams. I had a really good mentorship relationship with Dave Dines, Josh Dines. They're pretty big into the USTA, and it helps with when these opportunities arise. I can tell you that the Lakers probably did a little bit of homework, and reached out to other organizations and said, okay, has anybody heard of this guy? A little bit of a background check.
Oh, of course. No doubt.
And when you have people in other organizations backing you up, I had a great relationship with the head team trainer for the Brooklyn Nets. And that seal of approval can really make all the difference when, someone is vetting you and saying that, you're a good guy and, you'll do a good job.
Yeah.
So
I think you're nailing that. I think you're demonstrating how important relationships are, as much as, one part of success is just doing your work, doing your homework, being ready, knowing your orthopedics, knowing your sports medicine, being good at surgery. The other part is being likable, just being relatable. And, I think your experience as an athlete plays a major role in that. I think you can relate to athletes and you can relate to front office staff. So I think that's huge.
That's the biggest part that I took away from my fellowship. Once again, I think the orthopedics is the easy part.
I agree.
Learning how to diagnose and treat a particular problem is pretty straightforward if you really do the hard work and you stay on top of your reading. But it was watching the physician that I worked with, how there were differences in his art of communication with the trainer versus the GM versus the player versus the agent. Those are four different types of conversations, all about the same topic though, right? And to instill confidence in your decision-making process, it's all about how you present it. And I think that was the biggest part of it. So I can tell you, to answer your question again, do I think you have a leg up if you go to a particular residency program? I would say it helps. It's not the ultimate decision making factor in that whole process, but it certainly helps.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if you go to a residency program that's an academic powerhouse but isn't involved with necessarily pro sports, just make sure you go to a fellowship that has some pro sports experience. You know, at least one of the two has to give you that connection.
Yeah.
So like you said, if someone ever calls about you, someone can vouch for you.
Yeah.
And so, we have a lot of physical therapists that kind of are probably tuning in right now, probably a lot that you even work with. And one of the questions that's popping up is, do you work closely with physical therapists? What's your experience with them at the pro level?
Yeah, we work pretty closely with physical therapists. I mean, once again, it's my job to make an accurate diagnosis, but then it's a very collaborative effort in terms of the treatment plan. At the level of working with my regular patients, the conversation I have whenever I'm booking anybody for surgery is, look, 50% of this is on me to do a technically sound surgery. And then the other 50% is on you and your physical therapist to put in the work, right?
Of course, yeah.
And my residents and fellows, they always ask me, they're like, why are you so diligent about knowing what physical therapist, your particular patient is going to? Because I want to know if they're actually getting good physical therapy.
Yes.
There are a handful of places here in West LA that I will direct people to. Mm-hmm. And, I will, even if they don't listen to me right off the bat, and we're falling behind the curve with our physical therapy plan, mm-hmm. I will redirect them that way. And I've had multiple situations where, they'll come back to me and say, wow, you were right. I should have just gone there in the first place, Yeah. So, our relationships with physical therapists are so important.
So important.
They really provide the foundation for getting somebody back to what they want to do. We can fix anatomy and put the pieces back together, but it's breaking that person down with the help of the physical therapist to find out why that injury occurred in the first place, and make a lot of different adjustments and alterations to just the way that people do things to prevent re-injury. And so I have some really good relationships with physical therapists, not only here in the community, but also, at the pro level. With the Lakers, we have Judy Cito, who's been great. She's been, she was brought back as our director of sports performance, and gosh, she's brought so many great new ideas to what we do. And, this is such a collaborative effort, man. Everybody looks to orthopedic surgeons to be the decision makers, but that's just not the way it works.
It's a team approach. Yeah.
It's a team approach. I don't know a lot of what Judy knows. I can learn, when she introduces things, and she can learn from me as we introduce new things on the orthopedic side with diagnosis and management. But you can't know everything. And,
100%.
When everybody stays in their lane and collaborates and contributes at a very high level, you see great results on the back end. So I couldn't do what I do without physical therapists.
Yeah, I think, and just to add to that, I mean, staying humble and being willing to learn from other people, physical therapists, to your point about knowing certain physical therapists, knowing what they do, and not just physical therapists, athletic trainers, OTs, knowing their job, knowing what they do and what they're good at. When you get a phone call from one of them and you have a post-op patient and they tell you there's something wrong or they're worried, that speaks volumes.
Yeah.
They can really save someone. You can catch something early, or there's patients who, a primary care doc could have missed something, and now the therapist finds something and they could have needed surgery. Therapists are allies in this, athletic trainers, all of them. So that's great.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting question. It's kind of, you may laugh at this, but do you think doctors that take care of pro athletes or work with teams are more talented or better, in quotation marks, than those that do not?
No. I think that's a common misconception. That just because you're working with a professional team that you are the best doctor in that particular market or city. There are tons of great doctors.
So many good
Los Angeles. I mean, if you live in Los Angeles, you can throw a stone and hit an orthopedic surgeon, in West LA, Beverly Hills.
So many good ones. And
you'll hit a good one, I work with many of them, once again, a collaborative effort, both, I don't take care of everything. And so at the professional level, I have to put a lot of trust in a lot of other doctors to help us take care of some of these athletes with specific problems, So I don't think that's true at all. And you would have to get over your ego a little bit to know that, look, this isn't the end all and be all.
Yeah, it's actually probably one of the good things about our generation, right? Is that, some of our mentors, the guys in maybe their 60s or 70s, they didn't collaborate as much as we're doing. We all work in the same area, but a lot of us surgeons in our generation, we're friends, we're supporting each other, we're cheering for the other guy or gal. There's a lot of support out there. And
things have changed so much. I mean, back then, general orthopedics was the norm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you were an orthopedic surgeon, you took care of everything. Now everything's so super specialized. And so at the professional level, I'm not doing anything with a hand injury, until I get a hand surgeon involved.
100%.
That's just the way things work now. Collaboration is key.
So this is another good one. Is it's interesting because this is actually a very thoughtful question from someone who's not in medicine at all. They're asking, does working with a pro team actually help your practice, or can it hurt your practice? Which I wouldn't have even thought about that until I became a resident. So I think that's a pretty thoughtful question.
Yeah, I think it helps. I think from just like the business standpoint, it helps you build a little bit of a personal brand. You are a little bit more visible, when you take care of a professional sports team. So I think, sometimes I've had patients, come into my office and certainly say, look, I came to you because I heard you take care of the Los Angeles Lakers and you must be good at what you do. So,
of course,
at a high level, I mean, you take a lot of pride in that, and, you are humbled that they would choose you as their physician. But I think, sometimes the decision-making process is a little bit of who you're affiliated with, and who vets you and who vouches for you once again. People come to me because I work at UCLA as well. They know UCLA is a great academic institution. So I think overall it helps a little bit, makes you a little bit more visible, gets you a little bit more foot traffic through the door. But the interesting part is I think it doesn't hurt your practice too. I mean, I don't think it hurts your practice because our natural instinct, I think, is what we do, or type A, is to always work harder. So if more work is thrown at you, you just find, more hours
more time
a day to do it. So it hurts other things. It doesn't necessarily hurt your practice, though.
Yeah. I think, what some of my mentors, what they used to say, though, is that occasionally they would lose an hour in their practice here or there because of the drive. I think it was more, especially with the Dodgers, like you got to go from Los Angeles, from Culver City, and they had to go all the way down to the Dodger Stadium. So maybe they're seeing patients less 1 hour that day and things like that. So it would limit their time a little bit more. So that's about it, but I agree. I think it helps mostly.
I think you're absolutely right. Baseball, that makes sense because a lot of those games are in the middle of the day. For basketball, it's usually in the evening, so I tend to be done with my day. Although there are times where I may have added on an extra case to an operative day, and I may shorten my operative day if I know on a Monday I need to be at the Staples Center by 6:30. With LA traffic, you have to take that into account.
Oh, yeah.
So. Yeah, it's certainly a valid point. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, man. I'm sure you got to get going soon. So what I'll do is I'll ask the last one or two questions, and unless there's something.
These have been great questions. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's nice to just chat with you again. But okay, so this one is a big one. What piece of advice do you have? You kind of mentioned this throughout the talk, but what piece of advice do you have, or the most important advice that you can think of for anybody who dreams of being a team doctor? And you kind of touched on this throughout.
Yeah, I think, the motto that was given to me a long time ago, 3 A's of medicine, you've heard this, I'm sure, you want to be, affable, available, and ability, and being likable is so key when you have to work with so many different types of people on a daily basis. Once again, trainers, PTs, professional athletes, general managers, you've got to just be a likable guy and someone who's easy to talk to and communicates well. That's being likable and then available. My phone, I am attached to my phone. My wife hates it, but I am attached to my phone. I get palpitations when I'm away from my phone for like more than 20 minutes because I know I'm going to come back to it, and they're easily going to be 20 text messages, 50 emails, and now I've got to play catch up. So I like to try and stay on top of it.
I'm the same way.
Oh man, so that's a huge part of it. It's a blessing and a curse with these cell phones, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
And then ability is just hard work. That's just taking care of what you need to with studying and staying on top of your craft and making sure that you're up on the cutting edge techniques so that people know that you are a very knowledgeable physician.
Yeah. The one thing I would add to that too, that I didn't think about until, again, residency fellowship time period, is to never move or pick a job purely based on a professional team. That was one advice that one of my mentors told me. And I think the reason he came to that conclusion is because, he's about 10 years ahead of me. Two of the people that were his closest friends, you may even know them, had taken jobs in the country to work with an NBA or NFL team. And then that very next year, that went to a different practice. And then the team transferred to a different academic hospital or practice. Oh, yeah. So what I would always say is love what you do. Find the pride and joy of taking care of your patients. Find the pride and joy of being good at your job. Pick an institution that you're happy with what their mission is. And then I think you're a great example of that, actually. You came out to UCLA, you believed in UCLA, you loved orthopedics, you wanted to take care of athletes, you're taking care of Division I athletes. You didn't go there because of the Lakers. And then you were good at your job, and you're doing research, and you have the 3 A's, and one day the Lakers falls into your lap, and you're the perfect candidate. You're a great candidate because you were prepared, and the opportunity presented itself. But don't ever just move for a team because it could be taken right out from underneath you.
Yeah. It's funny. The first time I ever stepped foot in Los Angeles was my interview at UCLA.
I remember you telling me that.
I'd never, ever even been to Los Angeles. And I remember, coming here and just being amazed at the number of resources that were at this institution. There are some very smart people that work here. And what I saw was an opportunity to, practice in a really cool city with some amazing weather, and collaborate with some very smart people to do some great things at not only from the patient care level, but kind of like, the research level. And so that was the foundation for me, in picking my job. The UCLA athletic department position came along with that. Taking care of UCLA athletes is, almost like taking care of a professional sports team. I mean, it kind of demands the same amount of time. 100%. But I think you're right, man. Just the foundation has to be the institution and actually, like kind of like the physical location of where you live, because
I agree.
That's the work right for your family. It's been a little bit tougher for us, me and my wife. My wife is a physician over at Cedars, and so her hours are pretty brutal as well. And, you have to have a network of support, and we've sort of built that. It wasn't built in for us, moving from the East Coast to Los Angeles, having never lived here. But that's another component, too, because, your job is so demanding. You have to have the support outside of it.
Yeah. Well, Chris, dude, thanks so much, man. I think this has been pretty wonderful. You answered most of the questions. I think we answered a ton of the ones. There was a lot of similar ones.
All right, perfect.
Is there anything else you want to say or get across, or I'm going to...
No, I mean, if anybody wants to message me, certainly I'm available. They have my Instagram connection now. I'm always happy to answer any questions. I get pretty random emails from people all over the country about, how do I, get into orthopedics, and can I come work with you? And, we're always happy to try and accommodate people if it makes sense. So, just message me, and I'm always happy to give advice.
Yeah, Chris, you're getting some love from Emily down there. She says you're the best. But one note...
Emily Oswald?
Emily Oswald. Yeah, she's amazing. One of the things I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and tag Chris again. So if anybody doesn't follow him, you absolutely should. reach out to him. He'd be a great mentor for you people that are interested in orthopedics. And it's just, in general, he's a great human being. He's been a great colleague to me. So please take advantage of his knowledge and his experience. He's one of the few people out there who's definitely going to be willing to give people time. So I appreciate you for that, Chris.
All right, you got it, man.
Hoping we'll get together soon.
Me on. It was good to catch up, man.
All right, brother. Take care.
All right, buddy. Take care. Talk soon.